Adam and I were talking about this, and, like, just from an exterior perspective, like, the two books and the two movies, like, really couldn't be more different, but they actually do share a lot of parallels. Obviously, there is the revolution component. I mean, there's a revolution in both, different types of revolutions, but kind of centered around the same thing, like class conflict, class struggle are both huge pieces of both works, which I think that just illustrates how that's just been a recurring theme throughout human history. I mean, we look at our past and we see these themes. We see them now. I mean, we had that episode about, oh my God, I'm totally blanking out, the whole Occupy Wall Street thing, the 99% thing. And then there are so many dystopian works set in the distant future that deal with the same topic. So, Adam, did you want to say anything about that?
Well, I think a number of things. This is probably the biggest thing that I was bringing up to you, was I felt a certain parallel between the fact that there are some gray areas as far as who the capital citizens are, who's in the rebellion, and with the one character of Javert, whose obsession in Les Mis is to track down this one man, Jean Valjean, and to follow the law so to the letter and really to rest his entire existence on that. I thought I could see that in the same way peacekeepers for the capital could be doing the same thing, especially the ones who are patrolling District 11 or District 12, who may not have been bad people to their core, but because they were put into the situation and bought into this idea, whatever maybe they were brainwashed or just the only life they knew from the capital, they're able to turn into these disciplinarians that perhaps if they had been in a different situation, if the shoe had been on the other foot, they might have been great people growing up in District 12 who were just as appalled by the Hunger Games as anything else. So that I thought was a very interesting theme. And then also just the idea of, well, Savanna, I don't want to take the words out of your mouth. You had a great line about bread.
Oh, yeah, it all started with a loaf of bread. And you can make that same statement about both the Hunger Games and Les Misérables. Like, if you kind of go back to the root of everything, you find a loaf of bread, which I thought was really interesting. I mean, what does that say about bread, like, as a symbol in literature and in life,
Especially if that bread was made by fictionalfood.net's Crystal Watanabe, then you're really talking about a bread worth stealing.
I mean, and in both, it's like I feel like we could spend like 5 hours talking about this, so I'll try to speak in a concise way. But like I feel like in both Les Mis and the Hunger Games, like bread symbolizes both hope and oppression. I mean, Katniss was starving, and that bread was both kind of what was oppressing her and what was giving her hope. And I mean, the same can be said, I think, of Jean Valjean. I mean, his sister's son was starving, and that's why he stole the bread. So it both very kind of very different yet very similar things. And then I wanted to add to what you had said, and I mentioned this to you earlier too, about Javert. I was telling Adam how, even though I don't, and I've read the book, so maybe I'm speaking more from the book, but like I don't view Javert as an evil figure. So in that sense, he's nothing like President Snow. But I do think there are a lot of parallels that you can draw between Snow and Javert. I mean, both characters are fixated and obsessed with one person. In the case of Javert, it's Jean Valjean. With President Snow, it's Katniss. And you really have to think, why are they so focused on eliminating this one person who really isn't that big of a threat? What kind of a threat is Katniss? What kind of a threat is Jean Valjean? Katniss, obviously, President Snow sees her as a threat to his power and a threat to sort of the system that he has in place. And you can say the same thing about Jean Valjean. I mean, Javert, his power is the law. He has a line in the musical. He says, "I am the law." So it's like the fact that Jean Valjean is threatening everything that he is It's in a way, I think that's very similar to Snow's view of Katniss. Do you agree, right?
Yes, I do. No one else.
I don't want to go.
Courtney doesn't agree. Courtney strongly disagrees.
No, I completely agree.
Okay,
I think Savanna's making great points. I actually never even thought about it until you guys came out with the promo for tonight's episode, and I was like, oh, dude, of course. And the first thing that came to my mind when I thought of the comparison was what happens to the little boy, as badass as he is in that movie. I was reminded of the little girl in the lemon coat, and just kind of and everything Savanna said. Savanna, right on.
I have to share this before I forget, but I saw this awesome tweet from Tiffany.
Oh yeah, her tweet, yes.
Yeah, from Victor's Village and Welcome to District 12. She tweeted and said, "One big similarity is the concern that the oppression will repeat itself." And I just think that's such a brilliant observation because, as she also tweeted, the Paris uprisings happened after the revolution. And I think that's what a lot of people, this is as a huge fan of Les Mis, one of my pet peeves is when people say that it's about the French Revolution, because it's not. The French Revolution happened at the end of the 18th century, and the revolution / rebellion / uprisings that are pictured in Les Misérables happened in the summer of 1832. So completely different century. And obviously that's a huge concern at the end of the trilogy. Will this happen again? It's repeated itself in the past. Will it continue to repeat itself in the future? And I have some great listener comments, too, unless anyone here has anything else to contribute. Oh, my gosh.
I take over the listener comments. No. I have a lot to say, but I just don't want to. I want to leave the Les Mis conversation to the real experts here.
Well, I'll read a couple of listener comments. I said, oh, my gosh, because I saw this one that I thought that kind of made me laugh. But this is from Sarah. Parallel between The Hunger Games and Les Misérables. Many of your favorite characters die. Yes, that is very true. This is from Satsuma. Actually, I'm going to focus on one. She said a lot, but one thing that she said is really interesting. A comparison of Fantine and Finnick, which is not a comparison I don't think that I would have ever reached on my own. But let's see what she says. She says, both also depict sexual exploitation and abuse. So in the Hunger Games series, Collins took the bold approach of placing a male character in the archetypal fallen woman or whore with a heart of gold role. Finnick and Fantine are actually rather similar names, come to think of it. Both wind up dead in part due to decisions they make to provide their children with a better life. So we don't know if Finnick actually knew about Annie being pregnant when he died. I'll read one more of her comments. Oh, actually, I'm going to read this comment. Another parallel between Fantine and Finnick. In the book, Fantine's lover is much older than her. She's a teenager, he's in his 30s. Now in the 1800s, a teenage girl having a relationship with a man 10 to 20 years older was not that uncommon. But there is a line, he took my childhood in his stride, in her I Dreamed a Dream song, that to me seemed to imply that what happened to Fantine was basically statutory rape, that she was a young innocent taken advantage of by an older man who seduced her, which is absolutely what is implied in the book, which seems to have parallels with how Finnick was the youngest victor ever at 14 years of age and was sold by Snow at age 16. So those are some great observations from Satsuma.
Yeah, those are wonderful.
Tiffany tweeted something again about how Fantine and Katniss are also similar, because she said if Katniss does mention if she had been older that she would have probably ended up having to sell her body for money, like so many have had to do in District 12.
Right. Obviously there are vast differences, but there are a lot of comparisons that can be made.